All right, what's up, people? I just got out of a kind of an executive meeting with Jorge, and he was just kind of running me through, how to do the show. It's not even really a show, because it's been a while. I'm like, dude, I got this. So we're gonna go back to one of my favorite types of video, which is a watch along. And I watch along a lot of videos, a lot of different creators, whatever. The one thing in common is that I cannot have even seen like 10 seconds of it. I have to go in completely blind. So it makes them fun. I don't fucking write my videos. I do not. You'd be able to tell. You'd be like, oh shit. You've heard me read sometimes. It's a little bit different. I'm not as polished. But the first thing I want to say is that this guy, Arvin Ash, if you're not subscribed to him, you should be. He's what I would consider to be a popular communicator of very hard to understand ideas in modern physics. He's one of the best, if not the best. So I don't anticipate, I go into his videos to learn, not to challenge. This guy knows, he's up there, he knows stuff, like modern science and whatnot. I don't go to his videos looking to disagree. However, I think this video, from what I can tell just by the screenshot or whatever, the thumbnail, if you will, or it says map of reality. And the title of the video is The Map of Reality, 11 levels that make up, I think it's R whatever. And so, like, he's got this thing, and it's like, you are here, and it's like the levels, I think it says consciousness. I'm on thumbnails right now. And one of the things that, as a Buddhist or someone who is non-dual in my approach to the ultimate explanation, I guess, but that's not even the right word. I don't know that there is a word for it. But when you approach from that direction, you also understand that, samsara still is there. It's not like you get rid of samsara. You just understand it in a different way. So within Buddhism, you have this concept of what are known as myriad worlds. And this is when you get into the middle level jhanas, they teach you about these things. And it's kind of like, to try to equate it to a Western concept, it would be something like astrology, but also including some type of a metaphysic, which I guess astrology in the West does as well. So this might be a different type of watch along. I might not be talking as much. I might just be listening and being like, oh, that sounds cool. But, going into this thinking this is probably going to be a little bit more philosophical, then I don't know, I might have more to say. So without further ado, and I'm going to justify, he doesn't talk very loud. So without further ado, and mic checking this motherfucker, might I present Dr. Arvin Ash. I do believe he has a PhD. If not, he deserves one.
Why are men so gross? If your man refuses to brush his teeth or go to the dentist, I have the easiest solution.
I don't need someone looking like you telling me who's gross and who isn't.
Okay. And there are territories on this map that you'll be shocked to learn even exist. You wake up in the morning.
How did that happen?
You shut off your alarm. You check your phone.
I did not.
Everything looks fine. Ever. Sure, it's all real, but it's just level 1 of reality. There are many more levels, at least 10. Today, we're going to dive deep into what those 11 levels are, and then we'll go beyond and speculate about what could exist beyond what we can even measure. I'm going to show you a map of reality. And there are territories on this map that you'll be shocked to learn even exist. Stick around because that's coming up right now.
See, I don't think I'm going to have much room to talk here. I'm just going to be listening to this guy.
You're sitting in your chair, you're holding a phone, you see walls, trees, people. This is everyday reality. This is level 1, where things look solid, stable, predictable. And here's the twist. At deeper levels, solidity disappears. Because if you zoom into level 2, your chair isn't solid. It's made up of molecules, clusters of atoms bonded together. For example, polymers consisting of covalent bonds sticking to other polymers due to hydrogen bonds. Water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen atoms, H2O. Sugar is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen arranged in precise patterns. Chemistry lives here. Smells, tastes, colors, all are due to molecular behavior and interactions. This still feels tangible.
Okay, I'm going to have to, because I'm not really going to have a whole lot to say in this video, I don't think. But I think right there, by doing what he just did, he's making the assumption of materialism. Now, I'm not going to say that you're not allowed to be a materialist as a scientist, whatever. It's kind of like you're making some kind of a metaphysical designation of the world of perception, which he started off by talking about the world of perception, which only assumes look at it as a kaleidoscope of presentation. So I think you have to be really careful when you slip that materialism in as if nobody notices. Like, okay, we're talking about little molecules that go up into your nose. Yeah, that's still just a kaleidoscope of perception, even if you get smaller. Sorry.
But we're not done, not anywhere near done, because if you zoom in further to level 3, you'll find the atom. It's about 99.99% empty in terms of mass concentration.
I want you to understand that I think these levels to this point, to me, seem to be kind of like, how should I put this, limited to a particular way of trying to understand things. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's arbitrary, in other words. It's like, okay, we're going to draw this line here. I think that's our line drawing. I don't necessarily think that that's lines drawn into nature or into reality itself, you know what I mean? We're the ones that make the measurements, because all measurements are ultimately available to all. That's non-dualism. So anyhow, this is interesting, but...
Because almost all the mass is at the nucleus, which would be the size of a pea at the center of the largest stadium in America, if that stadium were the size of an atom. But the electron function extends throughout the atom. We can visualize this wave function of a single electron in a hydrogen atom as a cloud everywhere in the stadium. And at this level, the solidity you sensed at level 1 disappears completely. When you press on something solid, the atoms in your skin don't crash into the atoms in the object. Instead, their electrons interact through electric forces. A quantum rule called the Pauli exclusion principle prevents electrons from being squeezed into the same state, so the atoms strongly resist being pushed together. That resistance is what you feel as touch. Solidity isn't made of hard particles touching. It's a kind of illusion created by forces and quantum rules. This is already strange, but let's go to level 4, which is inside the atomic nucleus. Here we see the nucleus is composed of protons and neutrons.
Okay, now what I want you to kind of pay attention to here is, and this has been going on for as long as he's been talking, I think, is just this assumption of materialism. Like, we have these things, we have these things, we have these things and their interaction. A thing interacts with another thing. What we have is things. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And what I'm saying is, I think if we really want to understand reality, we have to understand that that is just an appearance. And it's actually, one of the biggest stumbling blocks metaphysically that you can make, but whatever.
Inside those are quarks. Protons are made of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, whereas neutrons are made of 2 down quarks and 1 up quark. Each quark carries 1/3 of a positive or negative electrical charge, such that when added together...
Okay, one of the most interesting things I think that's, come out ever since we've come up with this quark theory, which is, quantum chromodynamics, or QCD. It's a very specific branch of quantum physics that deals with the strong force, which is what this is all about. Now, one of the interesting things to understand is the deeper you get, now why are we dealing with fractional forces? And the reason for that is because we assigned the 1 at the wrong point and we're stuck with it. So what if we had these guys be 1? Well, then that would fuck everything else up that we do. I mean, we'd have to adjust. It wouldn't fuck everything up to hell, but it's just, where do you put the 0 on the fucking ruler? and where he put the ruler on the map. And then you understand it's just a map and our way of looking at things. Do you think, for example, if you had a bird that used a lot of magnetic, sensation to know how to fly north or fly south or whatever, don't you think that their maps would be a little bit different than our maps? You see what I'm saying? So anyway, go ahead, but there's always things. So we have these things that are called quarks. And sometimes they play games with each other.
Together, they equal either 0 for the neutron or +1 for the proton. Electrons orbit as a cloud around the nucleus. These are the building blocks described by the standard model of particle physics. And there are several more building blocks. But if we go deeper to level 5, we see that none of the components of the atom is made of quote-unquote stuff. It's made of tiny excitations. Modern physics tells us something shocking. Particles are not tiny marbles. They're vibrations in three-dimensional fields. We have simplified...
Subtle shift. You might think, oh, wait, we're getting closer here. We're getting closer. No. No, they just put a costume on and it's fucking Halloween, okay? That's what they did here. The field is still a thing. I got a field now. It's even cooler. It's like a pool of water. Drop a stone in, see what happens.
Divide these fields into 2 dimensions for visualization purposes on your screen here. And each fundamental particle is an excitation in its own field. And these fields exist everywhere in space. The electron field exists everywhere. The quark field exists everywhere. When the electron field vibrates in a particular way with enough energy...
So then, by that mechanism, how would you separate or how would you differentiate between the fields and space itself? You say that they pervade space, which to me would indicate that you believe space is something different, and these are like, however you want to put it, I mean, this is kind of crude, but say like you did have a pool of water and then you dumped a bunch of like food coloring in it, then you like mix it up. You got colored water, right? But I don't understand how what are you throwing in steaks and they just float?
You get an electron.
I'm being silly.
The same applies to quarks.
I don't disagree with
every
any of
other fundamental particle.
Like
you're not made of particles. You're made of ripples in invisible fields. Reality is more like a symphony of vibrations than a solid
just the
sculpture.
Underpinnings of it, philosophically.
And all of this happens in level 6 of reality, space-time. According to Einstein, space and time are woven together in a single fabric.
Now, I'm going to throw something in here, and I'm sure he's aware of this, but there's a movement within modern, I don't know which sub-branch of physics it is. It could be, theoretical physics for all I know. It's cosmology probably, because it has to do with space-time. And it's basically the idea of space-time needs to be jettisoned. It's like the, what was that stuff that they tried to say? The ether that would show that there's kind of like there's a direction that things are going. And Einstein, disproved the ether exists or whatever, or the ether is just space and it has no, resistance. Although there's a tiny bit, but that's where the quantum effects come from. But yeah, so I think, some of the more modern, directions in that study are showing that space-time needs to be abandoned as a concept, and we need to start from other things. I think they're called spinners. That's SPINORS. I believe that's what they're called. I could be wrong about that, but check into it. I'm sure Arvin Ash probably even has a freaking video on it if you look through his stuff. Like I say, subscribe to this guy. He's pretty smart.
That bends in the presence of mass and energy. Gravity isn't a force pulling objects together, it's curved space-time guiding motion. Planets orbit the sun because the sun bends space-time. Planets follow a straight path in that space-time. We feel weight standing on the ground not because the Earth is pulling us in the usual sense, but because the ground prevents us from falling through curved space-time towards the center of Earth's mass. Space-time is dynamic, not static. What if we zoom even further, far smaller than atoms and far smaller than quarks? This is level 7. We reach something called the Planck scale. This is around 10 to the negative 35 meters. This is extremely small. To give you an idea, if the atom were the size of the entire visible universe, a Planck volume would be the size of a house. At this scale, quantum mechanics and gravity clash. We don't yet have a complete theory here. Some ideas suggest space-time may be granular, almost like pixels on a computer screen. Others propose vibrating strings. We don't know. We don't have any theories that work below this scale. And that uncertainty is actually thrilling scientifically because it is perhaps the final frontier of knowledge. Now you might be asking, okay, this seems like the end. What's level 8? Well, just because our theories don't work below the Planck scale does not mean there's nothing there. Many physicists now suspect something radical. Information might be more fundamental than matter. Black hole physics suggests that information cannot be destroyed. Some theories propose...
Okay, I want to be the idiot that comes out and says, can you please give me a common sense definition of the word you're using as information? I mean, I naively know what information means, but in a like physical theory, I guess I'd have to look that up and it'd be some kind of weird equation. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Because it's not a fundamental thing. Information is not a fundamental thing. It requires, at least as far as I'm aware, that it requires some kind of it basically requires something else other than itself in order for it to be information. Like, how would you differentiate between knowledge and information? Like, what's the difference between those two words? They mean roughly the same thing, but one kind of has a certain vector that the other one doesn't.
That space-time itself emerges from quantum entanglement, which is a kind of web of informational relationships. Quantum entanglement is a property of quantum systems where two or more parts share a single state, so that measuring one instantly constrains the possible outcomes of the other, even if they're far apart.
Okay, the big thing now is, and he just referenced this when he was talking about the Planck length, which also has a time associated with it, 10 to the negative 43, whatever the fuck seconds, or nanoseconds, whatever the fuck. Yeah, those are basically, as far as we can tell at this point in our measurement, those are basically the quanta of space and time. You know, like the building blocks. He mentioned that as a possibility. I think that's probably right now this whole string theory thing is just, what a waste of time. You know what I mean? But fundamentally what's at issue is that you have these two theories that work extremely well. You have, basically relativity and space-time and the standard model of particle physics. And all that shit works when you look at things at normal size. That's how it is. But when you get below a certain point, funny things start happening. Things don't behave the way they're supposed to. But yet the math on quantum theory is more precise than that of relativity, although they're both very precise. So there is a loggerheads here. Now, there's basically three possibilities. Either you're going to subsume quantum theory into relativity, space-time, etc. theory. You're going to absorb that in and kind of smooth it in, and then you're going to get the right numbers for all the stuff that you couldn't see before or couldn't calculate before, right? And then the second option would be just the reverse of that, like, quantum theory subsumes relativistic understanding and the standard model, etc., and then you get the right numbers, etc. And the third option, which is the one I think is going to eventually happen, is that we come up with some new, more fundamental and more, how should I put this, friendly to Occam's razor. In other words, a little simpler, a little like something we're just missing that would make this all kind of make a little bit more sense. I was talking scientifically. Philosophically, that's a whole different question.
In certain theories, especially those inspired by holography and ADS-CFT correspondence, I have a video on this up here if you want to know the details. The geometry of space-time is mathematically linked to how strongly regions are entangled. So what we experience as distance may really be due to how much two regions are entangled. Highly entangled regions would appear closer. Weakly entangled regions would appear further apart. At the Planck scale, the fundamental ingredients may not be particles in space, but underlying quantum fields whose entanglement gives rise to the geometry we perceive as spacetime. If this is true, then the universe may not be built from matter, but from shared...
You ever wonder why we follow the reductionist paradigm? I mean, even the structure of this video is a reductionist paradigm. That means you start with something that's, relatively complex. Like it could be the fact that you're sitting in your man cave making a video, or you're watching somebody else's video, something like that. And then in order to explain that whole state of affairs, you just keep putting the microscope on everything. So everything's kind of made up of parts. And then what are those parts made of? They're made of parts. And then every generation has a limit to how far they can see the parts. But why don't we do it the opposite? Why don't we explain, the in situ, or the panorama of perception that we're trying to explain, which we might call, the state of affairs that such and such is happening. Like I'm sitting in my man cave making a YouTube video, watching another YouTube video, and going on and on and on. But I've been away for a while, so I can get away with this shit. But the point being is, why don't we explain the mid-size in terms of the ultra-large? Like, let's say the universe as a whole. Why don't we try to explain it in that direction? We always try to explain it in the smaller direction. I'm just asking. I don't know. I think that should tell us something psychologically in the way that we, I guess, try to acquire knowledge about things. I mean, so far so good, right? I mean, we're using these fucking phones, aren't we? They're taking us over with these phones.
Or entangled information. Something similar perhaps to bits. This is like a cosmic operating system. These bits are not necessarily binary bits like the computers we're used to, but perhaps some other type of bits. Quantum bits, perhaps. This is speculation. We don't know. Let's step back from this and think about level 9. This level is not going smaller, but going deeper. Because somewhere along this chain, chemistry becomes biology. Molecules organize into cells. Cells organize into organisms.
Snap your W-2 and file your taxes
I already got my
100%
refund.
free.
Leave me
Plus,
alone.
get your biggest refund.
Into cells. Cells organize.
So I think at this point in the video, maybe it started a little bit earlier, he's being he's hypothetical with this, right? Like these are the problems out there, and this is how we think we're going to solve them. I don't really see this as levels of existence at all. I think that's a misleading way of looking at it. Again, you're arbitrarily categorizing the way you think that scientific paradigms have, proceeded over time, and how then you can maybe predict the way they're going to proceed in the future. I mean, assuming there's no giant asteroid that wipes it all out, or some solar flare that basically destroys all of our electronics. Think about those things, man. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Into organisms. We get life, and life is matter
It's the
that processes
abiogenesis problem, by the
information.
way. I don't see
It
how...
maintains and
See, he put abiogenesis at level 9. I don't understand. I would consider that to be... I mean, all science is related, but I would consider that to be less related than he's been going on and on about physics.
produces itself.
And he's talking chemistry.
It organizes. It makes order from disorder within itself by using energy. In doing so, it reduces its own entropy, but it increases the total entropy of its surroundings even more, usually by dissipating heat. The significance of life may lie one level deeper still. Level 10, because now we arrive at something extraordinary. At some point in this biological complexity, subjective experience appears. Physics can describe neurons firing. It can describe
Okay, here's where we really get into this. The main philosophical problem here is that he's definitely saying that material or things cause consciousness. And I don't understand if maybe he's not aware of a lot of the directions of modern physics, but it seems to kind of be going the opposite direction. That consciousness itself might be fundamental, and that this world of so-called matter, like you said, if you get small enough, you basically float through shit. I mean, there's nothing there, very little there. The little that's there is what we, at the higher scale that we exist on, perceive as solid objects. But yeah, they're mostly empty space, of course. But we're dealing with levels, but you made arbitrary levels. I would say they're all the same level. Everything in here is the same level. And what are you going to do now? Consciousness. Oh no, where did it come from?
Electrical impulses. But how do electrical signals become the taste of chocolate, the redness of red, the feeling of love? What is it like to be uniquely you? This is known as the hard problem of consciousness. We don't yet know the answer.
Good luck, buddy.
Some scientists think consciousness emerges from computation. Others think it may be a fundamental feature of reality. The question remains open, and that mystery is profound. But there is
No. Not a fundamental feature of reality. The fundament of reality. Well, sort of. You have to get beyond, like, individuated consciousnesses. Like your consciousness, my consciousness. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being itself, or like the thing that makes water wet. What makes water wet? Because it's water. That type of thing.
at least one higher level than even that. We now get to level 11. At this level, something astonishing happens. The universe becomes aware of itself. Through human minds, through you, the cosmos reflects. Hydrogen atoms formed at the Big Bang. They fused into...
I hear this, these are these like little, what are they called again, where you start trying to say something nice. Or they do this, we're all made of stardust. It's just the most trivially of like pandering type statements. What was he even fucking saying? The 11th level. Oh yeah, the universe becomes conscious of itself. What does that even mean? That statement, that little truism, aphorism, whatever you want to call it, man. What does that even mean? The universe becomes conscious of itself. What? I need some definitions. I need some explanations.
Stars forged carbon, oxygen, nitrogen in their cores. These elements assembled into neurons. Neurons formed thoughts. And now those thoughts are contemplating the origin.
Again, that's if you go with the materialist reductionist paradigm, philosophically. We know that there are certain things that we would call phenomena of perception. And there are regularities within our shared phenomena of perception. Like if we're in the same room together and we're looking at the same things, we might see them in a different light. Your shade of brown might not be exactly my shade of brown, etc. Maybe one of us is colorblind, who knows? But we're still going to be sharing the same kind of like reality. And there's certain physical interactions that could happen that would produce certain other phenomena. Those are all given. As Kant would say, those are the phenomena of perception. They're just given. We don't choose the fact that that's the case. To say that those phenomena of perception are rooted in a materialism that is gained an understanding of through a reductionist approach, that is certainly one way to look at it. But I don't necessarily think I agree with it. So,
of hydrogen. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is literal astrophysics. You are stardust that woke up. Now the question is, can we go deeper? These are 11 levels, but they're not separate worlds. They're like the nested layers of an onion. Each level is supported by the ones below.
Okay, I'm going to stop it here. I'm not going to finish out because he went to level 11. That's what he promised. You finish watching the video. If you didn't watch it before, I made my little response, which that's kind of why I posted it, so you could watch it first and see how I would make mistakes before I made them. But no, I mean, when it comes to the actual physics involved in the science, like when he starts putting up those fancy diagrams and stuff, like even the one that's on the screen right now, which is a wave excitation. that, some people used to call particles, but sometimes they behave like particles, so we call them that. We really don't know what the fuck's going on. And that's the bottom line of this video. I mean, we can experience the phenomenon of perception. It's in the interpretation of that is what gets into science. And so I'm all for the science. And don't get me wrong, but I think, when you start making these metaphysical assumptions, I'm not saying you can't make them, and I'm not saying that it doesn't lead to some, great technology, assuming those things. But, the whole thing about like imaginary numbers is you're making kind of an assumption. Even with negative numbers, you're making some kind of assumption, because there's not like a negative thing that exists out there to counterbalance a positive thing. The negative just represents a removal of that type of thing. But when we take mathematics, what we're doing is we're making it more abstract every time we go. And then you get into the ultimate level of abstraction, and what are you left with? I mean, I don't know. They want to say it's set theory. I think they have that wrong. I think mathematics itself is prior, and that we derive set theory and logic from mathematics purely. Well, I disagree with the, most, or I wouldn't say consensus, but the plurality, if not majority, of philosophers disagree with that. They think that set theory is prior. I don't. But anyway, we're getting off topic here. But yeah, I think, you can appreciate the science. And again, subscribe to this guy. He's very informative. And you can't really get a read on his own, like, approaches to certain controversial or, conflicting, like if you get to, the interpretation of quantum physics, there's multiple worlds is one, and then like superimposition or whatever is whatever the fuck with the cat. Who cares, right? There's all these interpretations of what's really going on. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we really don't know. I mean, that's why we study, that's why we measure, that's why we do things. But keep in mind that there's other ways to measure rather than just trying to peek into smaller things or to bounce, protons at each other at accelerated speeds. I mean, we found the fucking Higgs particle that way, didn't we? And understand that even within this infinite plurality of reality, of presentation, that every conscious moment is unique and determined, and it all fits together into a mosaic. We can only see so far in that mosaic. I mean, we're limited. We're bent into, what you might call space-time, three perceptions of space and one of time, although we can conceive of more of each, which is interesting. So we're bent into reality in a certain type of way, and the measurements of science are kind of a way of enumerating, as what they would do in almost every, deeply, what you might call occult tradition within even all the mainstream religion. The old ones, not the newer ones. The newer ones tended to, kind of get away from that. But, the whole, importance of astrology and seasons and et cetera, as it comes to the fact that we, in some way we have a deeper connection to this reality than we know. So yeah, that's just me jibber-jabbering and whatnot. And Jorge said I owed you I can't even see how long my video is. I know I stopped his at 10. Which means this is probably at about 20, if not longer. I got some cool shit. Coming. I got a Deadpool. It's still sealed, factory sealed. But it's like an action figure. But it's like a limited edition, et cetera, et cetera. And I got my last Ronin number 5, so I have the first issue and the last issue. This one I got signed. Yeah, I didn't take a picture of it because it's some kind of glossy cover that you really can't take a picture without it just glaring the fuck out. So I just didn't take a picture of it. And then I got some other cool shit coming too. But anywho, back to reality. Oh, dude, I got this a while back. I got an obsidian mirror. Yeah, a scrying mirror. Yeah, it's about 2.5 inches in diameter. It's circular. Came with a stand. It's real fucking, obsidian. just like my Athame. Yeah. I know you guys hate it when I upload Q, except for that one guy. Yeah. But see, that, you know, that's funny because I'll just start, you know, recording as I'm playing. Because I'm testing out. I have like even better decks now. Like I took that deck and there's one card. It's the Invisible Man. And so I changed that out. Just that single card. I changed the first deck, that my number 2 deck, I changed it out for a set of all sets. And then the third deck, I changed it out for Angel Falls, which is the most aggressive, I would say. So I've been playing that number 3 deck today. They didn't switch over leagues yet. I played a few levels of leagues, I just didn't upload them. You know, I'm not one of these people that goes after Dragon and all the high shit. I used to when I started playing, but you see these people on the Reddit where they're just like, they have like insane amounts of cards that are hard to get even one of, and they'll have like 3,000 of them, and you're just like, what the fuck? Either you're fucking like, that's a fake screenshot or whatever, like you manipulated it, or like you're paying shit tons of money. And I don't pay money to play that game. You know, if I need a card, I'll trade for it. You know, when I started up, I paid money. Not like terrible amounts, but yeah, I put some money into it. But you had to at that point to, you know, get caught up with what you need to dominate, and then you play without having to pay money because you're just good at what you do. You move slower, but you know, have more fun without having to pay money. But yeah, I've seen decks that are just insane. I mean, my weakness, even running a low energy deck as I do, my weakness is still energy denial. Because you are going to need some energy. And when they're putting you down to -1, it's like you can't play anything. You can't even play zeros. Because you would need 1 to get the 0. Oh yeah, there we go, negative numbers again. That means I went in a loop. That means this video's over. Until next time. Where the fucking off switch is. Jorge.